Well, hello, everybody. Stephen Mead here for Domicile Real Estate. This is our Southern California first-time buyer market update for July 16th, 2021. Really kind of some big news. I think the market is moving. You know, if you watched our update earlier this week for the whole market, I think there was a little bit more uncertainty, but kind of looking at some of the numbers and where we are, I personally think this is a little bit of a midsummer break for us. I think this might be the reprieve that some of the first-time home buyers have been looking for. So if that's you, I have some good news for you. I'll talk a little bit about the end about specifics of who I think is kind of in the best position to take advantage of some of this market information. So I don't want to waste any time. It's Friday. You're probably out there getting ready for the weekend. So let's go ahead and jump into this. And we'll get right in there, and I will tell you what I am talking about and what I am seeing. So let me go back here to our beginning. All right. So again, this is our closed prices at the entry level end of the market. Just as a reminder for everybody, a couple things. This data is for Long Beach or Los Angeles and Orange counties. I'm sorry there. Los Angeles and Orange counties. The blue line is our entry level single family home. So that is kind of a first quartile 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And then our red line is an entry-level condo, which is our first quartile 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I think these are a pretty good approximation of where entry-level houses are in most markets. You will be within 20 miles or so of homes that are in this price range. So let's just take a look for a second, and I'm going to give you the reminder, as always, that these are closed prices, which means these are prices that are based on contracts that were signed 4 to 6 weeks ago. So kind of looking through here, we see some modest improvements here up to 740. This is a new high for us on the single family home metric. As you can see through this year, it's pretty much been you can see the trend line here. There've been some ups and downs, but the reality is I think it's very clear prices have been rising. No surprise there. Similar thing down here in our entry level condo, and we're at 507,500. So we are almost to our high point there, maybe only $2,500 off. So now if we kind of combine that with interest rate data, we get to our monthly payment point. And, you know, just as a reminder, part of the reason why we do this is to kind of show historically where we are at. So versus 2018 here, today on our entry-level single-family home, the payment for a 5% down buyer with mortgage insurance, property taxes, and everything in there is $4,137 a month. 3 years ago or so, that would have been $3,600. You know, that is less than a 20% increase. Again, I don't think we are at a level where I am super concerned and or worried. In fact, if you look here, we are kind of really in line with where we've been since May. For about the 2 months, we've kind of been in this range, plus or minus, you know, $100 or so. Our condo market has moved. I want to talk about this for a second. I've felt like our condo market has been a little sluggish. Historically, condo markets are sluggish. You know, if you look back in history on market values in Southern California, condos tend to get run up first and they tend to fall first, and they're just a little bit more of a volatile market. I think that's primarily because I think there's a couple reasons, but the biggest reason is I think the condo market has always kind of felt like second fiddle to the single family home market. I think people have always viewed a condo in this market, most people at least, that it's something you buy when you can't afford the single family home. And I don't think that's necessarily changed, but I do think the idea of a condo as being something permanently that you own and live in, that there are just people who are going to be quote unquote condo or townhome people. I think that idea is catching on in a lot more areas. I think it has been that way in, say, markets like West LA for a while, Santa Monica, Venice, but we are seeing a lot more of that, I think, in other areas like Orange County, Long Beach, areas that maybe you wouldn't have kind of seen that permanent move to condos. So looking there, we're at $3,104. That is not our top dollar amount. Our top dollar amount was actually back in April at $3,189. But here's what's fascinating, right? We have moved roughly, so we went from 3,600 to 41. we've moved, probably about 15% or so from 2018 prices for our entry level single family home. 35.95 to 41.37. So, 15-ish%. But look where we are here. We've only gone from 2,900 to 3,100. That condo market in terms of payment has moved less than 10%. And I think that's very noteworthy. To me, I feel like that means there's still maybe some room to grow there. So this is just something for fun. We added, what is the minimum household income required to qualify for these payments on this previous page, assuming you have no other debts? Well, the minimum is about $101,000 here for our entry-level single-family home and $76,000 for our entry-level condo. Obviously, if you have other debts, that will increase those minimum qualifying amounts. Okay, so that's kind of where we are in affordability. I actually think we're not necessarily in a terrible place on affordability. I've kind of harped on this 1,000 times, and I'm going to keep doing it because, especially at the entry level end of the market, consumers make decisions based on what is that payment and what is that payment ultimately relative to renting. That's how consumers make decisions. People have families. Maybe they don't have a family, but they have choices, right? And they will make those choices kind of based on a rationale. So what we don't want to see is that affordability equation getting out of control, because when that gets out of control, that's when we know our market is really kind of in trouble. And by in trouble, I mean sort of subject to fast moving declines, we'll call them. So, okay, jumping back in, we've talked about the affordability of where we are, but I think the availability, once again, is really kind of where things are at. So first graph is our absorption rate. And one of the metrics that we have often used for absorption rate is anything between 70 and 80% is a seller's market, 80 to 90 is a very strong seller's market, and 90 plus is a circus. Look at where we are. Now, I think part of this might be influenced by the July 4th holiday, because remember, these are 14-day statistics, so we are still kind of seeing some of those numbers in there that might be biasing these, but this is a pretty strong drop. And I mean, I'm looking back here, we haven't seen these kinds of numbers since, if we roll back all the way back over here to early January, right? This isn't just a biased statistic. I'm going to explain some of the drop here, but even if our number is back here, right? Maybe it's a little bit higher. These are still much lower numbers. Still a seller's market, absolutely, but not a crazy town market. This is a much happier market to be in my opinion. And here we go. This really is the graph that I want to talk about, because I think this just kind of says it all. So we've been seeing a trend line here probably since about, really, if you go back since March, right? But that it's accelerated, this increase in inventory. And then, I mean, really, we dropped a little bit again. I think this was partly due to the impending holiday here, but look at the rebound that we have had in these numbers. If you look at our low point here, at our low point, we probably had a little over 1,100. This is a 50% increase in available single family home inventory. A nearly 50% increase. I'm going to keep saying it because this is huge, right? If you are a buyer in the marketplace, not only does this affect your market dynamics, right? Like, how competitive is the bidding going to be? I'm going to talk to you in a second why you might be a little surprised in the home market at the results that you see. You might not see what you're expecting, and we'll go over that at the end. But I mean, this is just a gigantic jump, not only because it makes the bidding less competitive, but because you have something that, as a consumer, I don't think you've had a lot of in the last 6 months, and that's choice, right? You haven't had a lot of choice. What's out there in the marketplace? So I think what's also remarkable here is looking at the condo inventory and how much it has not moved, right? This has been a much steadier market. In fact, inventory steadily declined, and then maybe it's risen a little bit, but not nearly the trend line that we could see here for our entry-level single-family homes. Very interesting that this division has just accelerated in terms of inventory. Now we have our 14-day still active percent, right? And this looks back and it says, all right, over the last 2 weeks, excuse me, how many of these houses are still available? There we go. How many of these homes are still available? And when we see this number decline, it means the market's tightening. But look at where we are in sort of our absolute sense. Yes, week over week, it's declined slightly, but look at how high these numbers are versus where we have been throughout the spring, right? Definitely some good news for you here. All right. Now, finally, we have kind of our week supply of homes, right? And again, this is a good story for consumers. If you are a buyer in the marketplace, this is a good thing. For our condos, nearly 6 weeks of inventory. The last time we saw any numbers like that were back here in January. Maybe that one part in April when rates rose. If you're a single family home buyer, you are at 4 weeks of inventory. Great news. Last time we saw anything like that, again, beginning to middle of January. We certainly didn't see it last fall. This is good news for buyers who are out there that we're kind of seeing the market kind of bumping on a little bit of a ceiling. I think buyers are saying, all right, this is the point where I'm going to reevaluate my decision based on pricing. This is actually a very, very healthy thing. So let's talk a little bit for a second about what this means to you as a buyer in the marketplace. So number one, if you are a condo buyer, I actually think the condo market has room to get more expensive. I think that I don't know whether that's going to happen or not, but I think from just a pure affordability standpoint, I think there's a little bit of room for that market to go up. I don't think that rental market has been quite as robust, and that might be holding back those condo prices. But if you're looking at that decision of do I buy a condo or do I stretch for a single family home, the economics look really good on a condo right now because of that. There's a bigger spread than usual between those 2 points. You save a lot more money, I think, right now. Okay, now I alluded to, you might find that the results are not what you're expecting out there in the marketplace. So here's what I see happening on the ground. Like when we talk about how competitive is a market, we talk about in a general sort of whole market segment sense, right? Like all entry-level single-family homes, right? All 3-bedroom, 2 baths in LA and Orange County. Here's the problem. In a market like this, you will find, and why don't I'll take a step back and talk about the market we had in March. The March market was if you had an outhouse in a decent neighborhood, you got 30 offers on it, right? It didn't matter what you put up for sale. People were willing to bid on it because they wanted to get a house, any house. When we have a market that starts to move like it is, which is still a buyer or seller's market, has not transitioned, it is still very much a seller's market, but it's a seller's market that is not nearly as crazy. Guess what buyers do when there's more inventory? They get pickier. So you're going to find that the top 20% of listings get 80% of the offers. So what does this mean if you're a buyer in like strategies, right? If you were a buyer, it means if you've been looking around thinking, boy, I'd like to get something that maybe needs a little bit of work, doesn't show that great in the photos, now is the time to execute that strategy. 3 months ago, you would have overpaid for a fixer. It wasn't that much cheaper than a finished house because people wanted everything. But today, you might actually get a deal on that house. And that's the difference between the market we're in today and the market we were in months ago. Thank you guys for listening. That's all I got for you this week. As always, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're watching this on our Facebook group, please do go to our YouTube channel. There's a link in the description for you, and subscribe because that is how you will see all of our videos, not just the ones that we publish to our various Facebook channels and our various Facebook pages. Also, if you are looking to be a first-time home buyer in the Southern California market, definitely give us a call, hit us up, send us an email. We're here to help you and bring our expertise to the table, and we'd love to work with you. Anyhow, we will see you next Tuesday for our whole market update. Have a great weekend, everybody.